Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogwu was a young military intelligence officer who took part and went on to play a leading role in the first military coup in Nigeria. The coup turned out to be a pivotal event that set up a chain of political and social changes in the country and affected its trajectory to this day. So, who actually was Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogwu? Was he a patriot whose patriotic endeavor went wrong, or a villain that he has been portrayed to be? In this edition of Hisple Media, we will answer these questions and more. Welcome to this edition of Hisple Media. Gabriel here. Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogwu was born in Kaduna in present-day Northwest Geopolitical Zone of Nigeria on February 26, 1937. He was born to Igbo parents from Opanam in present-day Delta State. Nzeogwu has been described as a soldier who wanted the best for his country. He was bold, brave, and well-loved by many of his fellow officers and subordinates. But Nzeogwu could not understand that Nigeria's problem cannot be solved with the barrel of a gun. Meanwhile, at birth, Kaduna Nzeogwu was given the Igbo name Chukwuma, meaning only God knows, which is usually shortened to Chukwuma. However, their Hausa neighbors prophetically claimed him and named him Dan Kaduna, or son of Kaduna. But before we continue, kindly take a moment to boop the like button on this video and subscribe to Hisple Media. It will go a long way to support our effort. Thank you. Since his parents were devout Catholic faithfuls, Nzeogwu was baptized with the name Patrick. However, as he grew up and became conscious of colonial Nigeria, he began to de-emphasize his baptismal name. He eventually dropped Patrick in preference to his given Igbo and Hausa names. This vibrant and charismatic young army major shot into national prominence on January 15, 1966, when a military coup d'etat that would change the trajectory of this country was executed. In the early hours of this fateful Harmattan morning, Kaduna Nzeogwu, together with his troops, stormed the official residence of the Premier of the North and the Sardauna of Sokoto, Sir Ahmadu Bello, killing him and his wife in the process. When Chukwuma and his troops struck, there was widespread jubilation across the country. The feeling across the country was that the inept political leadership since independence had been brought to an end. While that may have happened as Ironsi took over the reins of power from the politicians, their real plans did not materialize. But I will come back to that shortly. But how was the country doing before the coup?
From my own point of view, corruption, nepotism on the part of politicians of all parties, and the danger of internal strife in Nigeria swept the army into power.
Well, barely a few years into nominal political independence, political intolerance in the country had claimed its first major victim. The visionary chief Obafemi Awolowo and a good number of his political associates were given long prison sentences. By the way, Nzeogwu was part of the trial investigation team that investigated Awolowo. But I will look at his take on this trial in a moment. Meanwhile, the Tiv riot has been ruthlessly crushed. The rigged national census of 1962 has caused predictable problems. The Midwest region was carved out of the Western region in 1963 by the NPC-NCNC coalition in order to deal with Chief Obafemi Awolowo and his followers. The NPC-led federal government continued to meddle in the internal politics of the Action Group Party in the Western region, making the crisis worse. By 1965, the Western region was referred to as the Wild Wild West. Besides political instability, widespread corruption among the political elite, especially those who collect 10% for all government contracts, was high. The Nigerian army was also said to have been infiltrated by dubious and selfish politicians. Nigeria was tottering on the brink of collapse. The mood of the country was that something has to be done. It was only a matter of time for something tragic to happen. The coup was therefore executed to remove visionless politicians who, in the words of the soldiers, caused Nigerians to feel ashamed being Nigerians. The coup was planned and executed by a radical element in the Nigerian armed forces. Major Emmanuel Ifeajuna, who was said to be the leader of the coup, was in charge of Lagos Axis. Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogwu, who later became the face of the coup, was in charge of Kaduna Axis. Major Chudi Soke was supposed to lead the coup in Enugu, but was unexpectedly sent on an overseas training before the D-Day, but was replaced with Major Don Okafor. I may want to add my own opinion here. If Nzeogwu and co knew that the country as at then was a paradise compared to what it is today in terms of corruption, they wouldn't have bothered themselves about the coup. Even the Nigerian army has become, in the words of General Ibrahim Salihu, one-time Chief of Army Staff, an army of anything is possible. While Nzeogwu was successful in the north, unfortunately, the southern or the Lagos axis of the coup did not succeed. This happened for a number of reasons. First, while some people attribute the failure to lack of critical armored support and probably leadership failure on the field, others said it was due to ethnic consideration. Meanwhile, the coup in Kaduna was executed with precision because of the involvement and commitment of its leader, Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogwu. For the Kaduna operations, Nzeogwu had mostly northern troops under his command. Gibson Jallo and Atom Pera were said to be some of them. They carried out instructions given by their leader without regard for his ethnic origin. According to Nzeogwu himself, at the point he disclosed the coup to his troops, he was not armed. He believed the boys would have shot him if they did not believe in him. The failure of the coup in the south and the resultant considerable casualties of Yoruba and northern politicians and soldiers altered the perception of the coup. Interestingly, the first ethnic coloration to the coup was given by London's Observer newspaper on January 16, 1966. Notwithstanding, those who attributed and continue to attribute ethnic coloration to the coup may have their justification. The plotters were mostly Easterners, while the casualties were mostly from the north and the western region. But Nzeogwu only oversaw the coup in the north and wouldn't have controlled what happened in the south. So, how did his contemporaries see him? Well, let's get back to that shortly. Before the coup of January 15, 1966, Kaduna Nzeogwu was a commander of the Nigerian Military Training College (NMTC) in Kaduna. After 5 years of secondary education at St. John's College, Kaduna, where he left a good record of academic excellence despite his brushes with the school authorities, Nzeogwu joined the Nigerian Army in 1957 at the young age of 20. It is perhaps important to point out here that Nzeogwu was expelled from the school in his final year. He had rebelled against the school authorities because of the way the school dispenses justice. Nzeogwu vehemently refused to apologize for the school to pardon him. He was convinced that his actions was right. After his expulsion, Nzeogwu chose to write the Cambridge School Certificate Examination as an external candidate. Notwithstanding, he came out in flying colors. Nzeogwu appeared early in life to have taken much after both of his parents. He was bold, courageous, and stubborn as compared to his mother. On the other hand, he was focused, straightforward, and strict as his father. He also abhorred injustice. Growing up in Kaduna among Hausa people in the 40s and the 50s made Nzeogwu more of a Hausa man than an Igbo man. He was more fluent in Hausa language than the Igbo language. In fact, Nzeogwu was only Igbo in name. Beyond the genetic trait he acquired from both of his parents, his worldview was shaped and conditioned by his immediate environment. He had many friends from the north. After his secondary education, his father had wanted him to take up a white-collar job under the British colonial administration, but Nzeogwu would not welcome that. His father had tried hard to discourage him from joining the military and even went as far as suggesting the Nigerian police force. But this was to no avail. To his father and other relatives, joining the army was tantamount to a premature death. It turns out, however, that his parents and other relatives who opposed his decision to join the army were prophetic, as Nzeogwu did not last in the army. When all efforts to discourage Nzeogwu failed, he enlisted as an officer cadet in the Nigerian Regiment of the Royal West African Frontier Force and proceeded on a 6-month preliminary training in the Gold Coast. On completion of this training in October 1957, he proceeded to the Royal Military Academy in Sandhurst in England and was commissioned as an infantry officer in 1959. On his return to Nigeria in May 1960, Nzeogwu was posted to the 1st Battalion of the Nigerian Regiment in Enugu. He was later posted to the 5th Battalion in Kaduna, where he met and became friends with Olusegun Obasanjo. Between November 1960 and April 1961, Nzeogwu served briefly in the Nigerian peacekeeping mission in the Congo. On his return to Nigeria in 1961, Nzeogwu was assigned as training officer at the Army Training Depot in Zaria. He served here for about 6 months before he was posted to Lagos to head the military intelligence section at the Army headquarters, where he was the first Nigerian officer. Before Nzeogwu left for India in 1964 for further military training, he was already disillusioned with the quality of political leadership in Nigeria after independence. However, it has been established that Nzeogwu was not the initiator of the idea of the coup d'etat. Nonetheless, the idea was appealing to him and he jumped at it. During the coup, Nzeogwu did not discriminate between politicians and soldiers. For him, every hand that had been soiled and had contributed to our national problems was to be cut off. But was that the right idea? Let me know in the comment section. Soldiers who had allowed themselves to be used or misled by corrupt politicians deserve to die as much as the politicians. He was decisive in his own theater of the coup. But he failed to realize that Nigeria was more than Kaduna or the North. In Lagos, Ironsi's forces rallied round and defeated the mutiny. Do you think Ironsi was part of the coup, or was it a coup within a coup? Let me know in the comment section, as we plan to make a video on this topic in the coming weeks. According to Ben Bule, the plotters intended to release Awolowo from prison to take up the leadership of the country. But that was not to be. So, was Major Nzeogwu a patriot or a villain?
Some of these soldiers, I believe, are much more intelligent and much more patriotic than the politicians, whom we all condemn.
Lieutenant Colonel Patrick Awuna described Major Nzeogwu as a radical and inwardly insubordinate young officer who was full of his own ideas and probably thought he had the answers to all problems. Meanwhile, Nzeogwu was seen by many others as a patriotic Nigerian and not an ethnic jingoist. For instance, Major General Domkat Bali referred to him as, quote, a genuinely patriotic officer who organized the 1966 coup with the best of intentions, but who was let down by his collaborators. If we had captured him alive, he would not have been killed. Interestingly, as a military intelligence officer, Kaduna Nzeogwu participated in a treasonable felony investigation of Chief Obafemi Awolowo and the Action Group party members. According to Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, Kaduna Nzeogwu had some scathing remarks to make about Nigeria's national security and about those who were being investigated. If he had his way, he said, his treatment of the whole case would have been different. In an interview with Dennis Ejendu in 1967, Kaduna Nzeogwu was quoted as saying, "Personally, I don't like secession, and if this country disintegrates, I shall pack up my things and go." In his letter to Obasanjo, Nzeogwu was also quoted as saying, "I will create a new Nigerian army inside Biafra with Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba and other ethnic groups." All these created issues between him and Ojukwu. But Nzeogwu did not live to execute his plans. Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogwu was killed during the Civil War by Nigerian soldiers of the 21st Battalion near Nsukka on July 29, 1967. You can see more details of his death in our previous episode linked here. So, was Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogwu a patriot or a villain? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Remember to book the like button on this video and subscribe to Hisple Media. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Peace.